Abusive men will constantly tell you that they're only abusive, they're only mean to you because of you, right? Because of what you did. They'll frame you like you're the problem. What you did is always going to be the focus. But the truth is, you're actually being abused because of what he decided it meant. And that decision that he makes comes from somewhere. It's not reactive in the way that you think it is. It's very strategic. Because here's the thing. If he gets to define what your behavior means, then he's justified in whatever he does next. Stay with me because this is one of the biggest mindset shifts that will pull you out of the confusion. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach. I'm the author of 4 books, and I help women exit these relationships and rebuild after they've left them. I help women identify what's really going on by exposing the behavior of abusive men. So if you're constantly explaining yourself, click subscribe because you are in exactly the right place. You can work with me one-on-one, or you can join me inside my collective called She Rises Collective that I co-host with Shelly Pumphrey, get my books, do my group coaching programs, take my trauma bond recovery course, but you are in the right place to get yourself out of a relationship like this or heal after you've left. Now, here's the real thing, right? He's not actually reacting to reality. He's just reacting to his own feelings. He assigns meaning to things, and that matters so much because really it's the foundation of everything that happens next. They don't necessarily respond to what happened, but they are responding to what they think happened. So I'm going to give you an example. You leave your clothes on a chair and he's furious because you don't respect him because maybe he does the laundry. So it's not neutral, right? The thought of just like, maybe she forgot, maybe she wasn't thinking. No, you are disrespectful. So if you don't respect him, then it justifies him yelling at you. Because we're not talking about laundry anymore, right? He's made it a thing of your character. That's the problem. It's who you are. And to be fair, that's kind of like a relatively everyday example. Once he decides that something is disrespectful, he can react however he wants. It's justified because you did it first. You started it. This is how things like yelling and criticism and just abuse get justified in the mind of an abusive man. The jump that he makes from behavior to meaning, it says everything. This is the entire system right here. And then here you are, right, trying to argue the behavior, defend yourself, explain, and he's not hearing any of it because he doesn't want to. Truly, in his own mind, he doesn't even need to because he already understands it. So all this explaining that you're doing to him, he's receiving it as excuses, which probably makes it worse. You're here trying to argue facts and defend yourself and explain, right? You know, I just left them there because I was busy. I was going to pick it up, I swear. But he's operating on the meaning that he already assigned to it. You're disrespectful, so nothing else is going to get in. But do you always notice how the meaning that he assigns, it's never neutral. It actually just protects him. And that's exactly how you know that it's not miscommunication. Because the meaning that he assigns to you always works in his favor, doesn't it? You think that's a coincidence? I think not. Now, you take an example where like your behavior might be able to be interpreted in a few different ways. He's going to pick the one that allows him to be the most justified in being awful to you. He's going to choose the one that gives him the most authority. If you're tired, you're lazy. If you disagree, you're disrespectful. If you're emotional, you're manipulative. If you ask for something, if you ask for your needs to be met, suddenly you're demanding. Do you see the pattern? And honestly, we got to call it what it is, right? This is misogyny, but it's also entitlement. Every single interpretation of your behavior puts you in the wrong and him in the right. And he likes it that way. Because if you're wrong, he gets to correct you from up here, right? You're not in a relationship. This is a hierarchy. He's at the top and you're at the bottom. And people love to make excuses for men like this. Well, maybe he just misunderstood. Yeah, maybe he willfully misunderstood because it works for him. This is moral framing because then he gets to decide what your behavior means and assign a moral value to it. Good or bad, right or wrong, respectful or disrespectful. He gets to decide. And that's exactly how you land in yelling is not abuse. It's just him holding you accountable. And my God, you see that so often, right? I had to yell at you. You deserved to be yelled at. How else was I supposed to get things across to you? This is how an abusive man will say that being controlling isn't controlling at all. It's just him having standards. He just has boundaries. Intimidation isn't intimidation if you pushed him to it. But you see, right, once he sets the narrative about what you meant, what you did, what your behavior means, he gets to control everything after that. To be fair, this happens in relationships, right? Abusive relationships all the time. But I even see it in comment sections. Men have decided what they believe about women, their bias, their misogynistic bias, and then everything else is justified. So calling women names on the internet, well, she's a feminist and feminists deserve to be yelled at because feminists hate men. They have a whole belief system. So nothing can get in. They're not listening. But don't lose the fact that they're not listening on purpose because it wouldn't work for them. There's no benefit to them. In fact, men who give up being misogynistic, they have to give up their power. They don't want to. So one really common aggravating thing that so many women report to me is that he says to you that your feelings are manipulative, right? God, you're manipulating me with your feelings. But that right there, that is the system in action. You're hurt. You're crying because he did something, because he said something, and it makes sense. Any normal person in that receiving situation would be hurt and would be crying, but not to him. He already assigns it's manipulative. So he can't just sit in like, okay, she's upset. No, she's manipulating him. And that changes everything because now he doesn't have to focus on what he did because what you're doing is worse. You're being manipulative when all he did was enter something awful here. He doesn't have to take accountability. We don't have to talk about what he did. We're going to talk about what you're doing. And before you even ask the question, yes, that's intentional. Once he decides that your pain is not valid, that it's fake and made up, he is justified in not giving a damn. It becomes a tactic to him, right? Your tears, that's just a strategy. So if you're hurt, allegedly, he doesn't have to respond to that because you're faking. So he's not going to ask you why you're upset. He's not going to approach you with any level of curiosity. He's going to ask you, why are you manipulating me? He's going to say things like, stop trying to control me. And now the craziest part is you're on the defense. You're trying to prove that you're not manipulative. You're trying to explain why being screamed at would hurt someone's feelings. You're trying to explain your intention, but I want you to notice something here. Where's the original issue? Gone. Exactly. This whole thing, right, just gives him a perfectly clean exit from accountability. And that is literally one of the biggest payoffs for abusive men. They're constantly seeking ways to avoid accountability and make it your fault. If you're manipulating him, he doesn't have to respond. In fact, a lot of them think that if they respond and if they were to treat you like your feelings were real, you're just going to keep doing it. The most ironic part about women using emotions to manipulate men is that it doesn't seem to work. Manipulation works. This doesn't work. Men who are abusive do not give a crap if you're crying or you're hurt. So why would she keep pretending if it never works? I promise you, she'd move on to another tactic. But if he just makes it manipulation, then he doesn't have to repair, he doesn't have to think about it, he doesn't have to care. He can just walk away and say, I'm not dealing with you right now. Nah, you're being manipulative. This conversation's over. And he walks away feeling justified. Now, one of the things as I sit here and I talk about he knows and he's doing it on purpose, I want to be clear. He is doing it on purpose, but the unconscious piece is that it's manipulative, but he believes that it's manipulative. So many women are like, no, my guy's not that smart. He's not that strategic. He's no mastermind. I get it. Your abuser's dumb. They're not all dumb, but plenty of them are. This is not about intelligence or smarts. Instinct and strategy are just kind of natural to someone like this. A lot of abusive men genuinely believe the meaning that they've assigned. But that belief, it comes from entitlement. And entitlement really is the cause of abuse. I say this a lot. It's not trauma or substance abuse or his ex or you or his mom didn't raise him right or he has anger issues or he just loses control. Entitlement is the root cause of abusive men. That whole belief, it really comes from entitlement. So if you express pain and he sees it as fake, it doesn't matter. He interprets it through this sort of lens of like, I feel pressured, therefore you're pressuring me. I feel uncomfortable, therefore you're doing something wrong. I don't like this, therefore this should not be happening. Your feelings become a demand on him. And the truth is he's not obligated to meet it because you're faking it. So he's never really going to question the belief that he has because it works for him. Instead, he's just going to use it against you. One of the most kind of interesting things too about this is that it controls you in a way you're not even realizing. Like, yes, he's telling you how you feel, but it creates this doubt in you. You no longer trust your own feelings. Like, do I have a right to be angry? Should I be crying right now? Am I being dramatic? Am I overreacting? And then you start seeking out him, friends, family, trying to say, okay, so this situation happened. Was I right to be mad? Instead of trusting that you have a right to your own feelings. So women in these situations are censoring themselves, softening their tone, not bringing up issues to begin with, crying alone in the bathroom to avoid being called a manipulator. You're trying to be calm enough and reasonable enough and good enough and quiet enough to not be called manipulative. You made yourself smaller. And you know what? Good news for him, because now he can control you. You're so much easier to manage now. You think that's a side effect? No, it is exactly the outcome that he wanted. And you see this, right? You see what this actually is. DARVO, D-A-R-V-O, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. That term was actually first coined by Dr. Jennifer Freed. I have an episode of my podcast, Real Talk with Lisa Sonni, Relationships Uncensored, where we're talking about DARVO and betrayal blindness, which are two terms that Dr. Jennifer Freed coined. But watch how fast that happens, right? You bring up an issue, he denies it, but then he's the victim because he attacks you with, you're the manipulator. And he's then the victim of your manipulation. And the original issue never gets resolved because these guys are not looking to resolve things. They are looking to maintain the power imbalance. The truth is, we're living in a patriarchy, right? So many men, in fact, really most men were taught, socialized, conditioned over their life to believe that women use emotions as tools. They're taught that women use emotions as a tactic. So if he doesn't see tears as like your emotional experience, then he doesn't have to actually address the pain. He doesn't have to check his own behavior or question anything. It's just, you're the problem. Stop crying. I'm not dealing with this. He just assumes that you're using tears or whatever to sort of get your own way because that's how he views emotional expression, particularly from a woman. It's funny to me almost, really, how easily men can see she's crying, that's manipulation, and they can't see that when men are being intimidating, that's fear. It's so easy to see, right? Men use intimidation, threats, loudness, smashing walls, and all these things to create fear. You can't see that, but you can see tears as manipulation. But all of this, right? He creates a double bind because what's really interesting, and I hear this from so many clients, and actually tell me in the comments if you see this too, you learn that your tears are manipulative. So you go cry alone in the bathroom, right? You start being really stoic. You start holding in your feelings. You know, when your lip is quivering and you're like, you're right back. And you just leave the room. If you don't engage in the argument, if you're stoic and you hold your emotion because otherwise you're being called manipulative, let me guess, you're cold, you're not engaging, you're an ice queen, all those things. Women are criticized for being calm, and then they're also criticized if they're crying. So you can't win. That's a double bind. You speak up, you're aggressive, you stay quiet, you're passive aggressive. A double bind is the name of a situation that somebody puts you in that you can't win. As an aside, it's a sadistic double bind if they did it on purpose and they're enjoying watching you try to figure out what the hell you could possibly do to get yourself out of this situation. But in either case, there is no right way for you to show up, and that's the point. Because for some reason, if you can't win, you keep trying. Now, before anybody goes down this path, right, I have to say this, not all men, because healthy men would never act like this. A healthy man would see an emotional expression as information. A non-abusive man might feel disrespected and say, hey, babe, I feel like that was a little disrespectful, or I felt disrespected. Can we talk about this behavior? That's not what an abusive man would do. He's not going to escalate this into some kind of authority over you. He might say something like, hey, this bothered me, but he's going to stay in the conversation. This is how you tell the difference between an abusive man, maybe even a toxic man, and a healthy man. The difference is not actually the perception. It's what he does with it. Men so often want to act like they're the victim of this, right? They are the victim of your manipulation. And then that justifies the response, right? The truth is there's no point in defending yourself to a man who's abusive, to a man who sees this as his only option, his only belief system, right? That yelling at you and playing the victim is the only way he can move forward. There's no point because his interpretation is doing something for him. He is justified. This gives him power and it gives him an out. This is why he doesn't have to take accountability. So he's not going to give that up. The more you try to explain it, the more you feel stuck. Manipulation is covert and intentional. It is not a display of actual human emotion. Don't let a man like this try to convince you that your tears are manipulation. The problem that you're having is that your feelings, your emotions, it requires something from him, and he doesn't want to give it to you. He's not going to be accountable, he's not going to change, and he's not going to care. If this is hitting, if you are seeing your relationship in what I'm talking about, I want to help you. Let's go deeper. I have a program called the Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching Program that helps you over 12 weeks. I co-host it with Dr. Peter Salerno, and it's a small group of 8 to 10 women where we do the real work. We talk about the actions that you can take, the skills you need to build in order to break out of a relationship like this. Thanks for watching and hit subscribe. I'm going to keep showing you all of the tactics that men like this use.